Hello readers, I'm Amy, here to talk about The 13th Tale, a recent favorite, probably one of my favorite fiction books of the year. Also, huge thank you to Victoria from What Victoria Read. She sent me this book for my birthday, and I've been pretty bad about catching up on books that were given to me as gifts, but this was a book, it was just sitting there on the counter waiting for me, and I'm like, that is what I feel like picking up. So I picked it up, and actually it was kind of creepy and mysterious and giving me those October vibes. Or September vibes. It's actually still September. Anyways, I read this. I loved it. I want to talk about it. Maybe one of my books will actually stay on the shelf through the whole video. Who knows? So, The 13th Tale is following a woman who is kind of a self-made historian, history writer, biographer. So she grew up in this bookstore. It really doesn't make a lot of money day to day. However, they do deal a lot in rare books, and they have, say, 4 to 6 big rare books deals a year that support them. And growing up in this bookstore, that's how she's really gotten into reading, is she's read all these older books. She's really kind of veered towards the classics. She's written some on older authors that no one's really heard of. That's just kind of her niche. And then we get into the stuff that reminds me of Evelyn Hugo, which I know is a favorite book of everyone. So here's my little part where I can say, if you liked Evelyn Hugo, you might like this book. However, really quick, trigger warnings for child abuse and neglect. There is some implied incest that isn't really described. So it's not the heaviest book on that topic that you could read, but just trigger warning, that stuff is present in this story. So, the reason it gave me Evelyn Hugo vibes is this well-known author gets a hold of our main character, and she's like, hey, I'm going to tell you my true story. And coming from this author, that's interesting, because she has told everyone who's asked her about her life story a completely different story. So you can't really believe anything she says, and this young woman is like, okay, so how do I know that I can believe you? So they go through some things on, here's the reasons that you can believe what I'm going to tell you, here's the money that I'm going to be paying you. It's kind of, this writing is going to be yours to do with what you will. And she's staying at this house of this woman while she is listening to her story. So as she's telling her story, we're also really getting a look around at this house, and we're discussing ghosts, and there's a lot about twins, which has a huge effect on the story. And it was mysterious, and it was wonderful, and I really want to read more of this author. Her writing especially was very, very moody and really caught my attention. There is this part where our main character is readying her desk for writing, and she looks up into the window, and it's just describing this ghost of herself in the window, and how the reflection is setting the mood, and the darkness on the other side of that window. It was so good. It was so good. Like, the writing alone, I think the story could have been bad, and I still would have loved this book for the writing. But luckily, this story was good. The character building was great. The world building was great. She explores not only the house of the author, but also the house that the author grew up in, which, again, comes back to, like, the moody vibes. It's got, like, this kind of haunted house feeling to it. I want to read you this part in the book that talks about the author and her writing. It's a part, I actually did dog-ear this page. I dog-eared the book because I didn't have a pencil on me at the time, and I wanted to remember this passage. I have closed my study door on the world and shut myself away with people of my imagination. For nearly 60 years, I have eavesdropped with impunity on the lives of people who do not exist. I have peeped shamelessly into hearts and bathroom closets. I have leant over shoulders to follow the movements of quills as they write letters, wills, and confessions. I have watched lovers love, murderers murder, and children play their make-believe. Prisons and brothels have opened their doors to me. Galleons and camel trains have transported me across sea and sand. Centuries and continents have fallen away at my bidding. I have spied upon the misdeeds of the mighty and witnessed the nobility of the meek. I have bent so low over sleepers in their beds that they might have felt my breath on their faces. I have seen their dreams. That is the kind of writing you get in this. It's not necessarily metaphor heavy, it's just very descriptive and moody. Something else I want to say really quick about this book is it is heavily inspired by Jane Eyre. It mentions Jane Eyre throughout the book. I would even go so far as to say this is kind of a retelling of Jane Eyre. I don't know if it's an exact copy. I don't know how close the storylines are because I haven't actually read Jane Eyre yet. This is a little bit of a story time for me. If you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I was trying to work my way through the Bronte books. I have read both of Anne Bronte's books. I wanted to start on Charlotte Bronte. I started on Shirley and I really struggled with the first chapter. It was very politics and religion and setting the stage, and I just wasn't interested. And that was a couple months ago. I haven't really revisited it since then. I've been wanting to read Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, but Wuthering Heights is like the last one that I want to read because I want to work my way up to that. I hear it can be a tricky place to go, a tricky book to read. But, so I was reading this book and I was thinking, wow, it really makes me want to read Jane Eyre, even though I don't know that I'm quite ready for it yet. And then for Vampathon, which is in October, it's the readathon that I am hosting with 2 other booktubers. One of those booktubers is Taylor from Page Screen Taylor, and we were in the Goth Lit Club together for October where we talked about Dracula. Also link that video here. And I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, would you want to take part in Vampathon? We're reading vampire books. So I'm keeping up with her on social media. This story has a point, I promise. And I see one of her stories on Instagram about how they are having a live discussion for Wuthering Heights for her book club Past It Classics. And I'm like, well, what's Past It Classics? And she's like, oh, we're reading books that we didn't get to read in high school, and our October book is going to be Jane Eyre. And I'm thinking, is the world trying to tell me something? And I get a hold of Victoria, who sent me this book, because she's read Jane Eyre, and she's kind of talking to me about how to get started with Charlotte Bronte, what I could do to maybe have an easier time reading the books. And she's like, yes, the world is trying to tell you something, and I am trying to tell you something. You should totally read Jane Eyre. So apparently this book is now on my October reading list. Maybe I'll do a comparison between Jane Eyre and the 13th Tale. I don't know yet. I just thought I would introduce a little bit of story time to go with my review of the 13th Tale. And if you want a book to pick up for spooky season, I can't recommend this enough. It was so good. I've been hearing quite a few people talk about it lately, even though it was published in like the early 2000s, so it's not a super new book, but I think it is a book that's definitely coming to BookTube's attention, and there is a reason for that. Also, the title, The 13th Tale, relates to one of the books that the author in this book wrote. It was originally titled something about 13 Tales of whatever, and there were only 12 stories in it, and then it was immediately bought back and got new covers. It was republished, so there's like just a handful of books that still have the original title that are still out there and super rare, which relates to our main character who works in a rare bookstore. And everyone has always wondered, what was the 13th tale of the author? Do you find out the 13th tale? Is her life story the 13th tale? Will she eventually give people the 13th tale of the book? You're gonna have to read it to find out. I hope you all liked this video. I hope you pick up this book because it's amazing. Like I said, one of my top favorites of 2020. So please like, subscribe, be my friend on social media. I will see all of you in my next video. Bye, friends.